The impact of immigration laws are being felt in the state of Florida. We'll start off in the city of Fort Myers. Along Palm Beach Boulevard, the Hispanic district, many businesses here have closed, and those that remain open are uncertain about their future. I just got an email from a business owner in Fort Myers who tells me that he has seen a recent drop of 25% versus last year in business, and he contributes it mostly to undocumented people and Canadians who are no longer coming to his business. Along Palm Beach Boulevard, many restaurants have closed their doors, food trucks have disappeared, and used car sales lots are now sitting empty. As of right now, the real estate market here in Fort Myers is the second worst in the nation. Only Charlotte County next door has a higher percentage of homes that are unsold. With listings piling up on the market, few buyers to be found, price reductions in Fort Myers now exceed listings. And for those who say it's because of Hurricane Ian was 3 years ago, and this situation has only unfolded over the last few months. The Thais area has the largest population of Guatemalans by percentage of the population of anywhere in the United States. Here, the vans driving around are taxis, and many people don't drive vehicles, they walk or use bicycles because they know they don't have papers. The once thriving and busy districts of Fort Myers today look like a ghost town with people afraid to venture onto the streets, businesses long ago saying goodbye to their customers, and police presence being heavy. Out of all the cities in the United States, Fort Myers had the second largest percentage of its population being individuals under temporary status, those being namely Haitians, Cubans, and Venezuelans. When the current administration from underneath them withdrew their licenses, their work permits, all these individuals became undocumented. Under the temporary status protection, many individuals were able to become U.S. residents and some U.S. citizens. However, the bulk of people under this protective status had their work permits and their papers like driver's licenses revoked, and that led to a situation that in Fort Myers, many businesses had to let these workers go. For example, many of the Haitians were working predominantly in healthcare, and this led to a situation where many hospitals didn't have cleaning staff. In the case of Cubans, many of them were working at stores like Walmart, and when they were laid off, it created chaos for the retail market. Naples, Florida, where beach homes stretch well into the hundreds of millions of dollars, considered by some to be one of the wealthiest communities in the United States. Construction and tourism are really the only two large industries that exist here, and both have been suffering greatly. But it is noteworthy that despite the city of Naples voting heavily Republican, it is one of the areas in the United States that mostly uses undocumented labor, whether it's cleaning houses, cleaning pools, landscaping, construction, or many of the other services that the wealthy people use here. Without a doubt, there's nowhere else in the United States where there's a larger percentage of undocumented workers. It's interesting to see that the people who vote the most for Republican policies are also the ones who benefit the most from undocumented workers. Collier County has the largest wealth inequality in the United States. On the East Coast, you would have to go out west to find communities where there's a greater inequality of wealth. Here you have the extreme wealthy who live in $1 million homes on the beaches, or should I say $100 million homes on the beaches. These are not primary homes, by the way. These are simply winter homes. Some of these houses will have guests perhaps maybe a few months of the year at most. These are simply a billionaire's seventh beach home. Most of them are empty throughout most of the year, and these rich people don't like to see tourists in their city. The iconic Naples Pier was destroyed during Hurricane Ian, and more than 3 years later, the city has done nothing to fix this icon of Naples tourism, and many people believe that the reason why the pier hasn't been fixed isn't because they don't have resources. After all, it would only take 5 or 6 houses along the beach 1 year worth of taxes to rebuild the Naples Pier. After all, keep in mind that some of these homes are valued at over $100 million. So the tax proceeds from only 5 or 6 houses along the beach would be enough to fix the city's iconic pier. The locals believe that the reason why the Naples Pier hasn't been fixed is because the wealthy and affluent people that own these beach homes don't want to see tourists visiting their city. So if they can keep the Naples Pier closed down, all the better for them, the less tourists they have to deal with. Privatization of coastline, as well as the elimination of access to places like this, is only a staple of the ultra billionaires that live in Naples, who want to ensure that only they are able to enjoy the natural beauty and all the things that this coastline has to offer. And it's become a topic of discussion on many Facebook groups from Naples all the way down into Charlotte County. Privatization of coastline, the ultra wealthy trying to keep the regular working class people from having access to parking, having access in general to all of these beautiful coastlines. These people want these places for themselves, and they don't want anybody except them to be able to enjoy it. When it comes to undocumented communities, Naples has seen people come and it has seen people go. Originally, Naples had a large Mexican community, but Trump's first administration completely eliminated their presence. After that, Cubans and Colombians became the largest Latino group, with most of them being legal. Most of the Colombians that settled in Naples moved away because of lack of economic opportunity. The Colombian community is among the communities in the United States of Latinos with the highest incomes, and they simply were not able to make money here, so they moved on to other areas where they could make more money. Thus, the Colombian community of Naples has slowly been disappearing, as this is a very willing to mobilize community following economic opportunities that simply never existed in Naples. A large growing Cuban community, predominantly people leaving Miami, has also moved into Naples. Over the last few years, after the migration outward of Mexicans, Guatemalans became the second largest group of immigrants in Naples. The vast majority of these Guatemalans were undocumented, but it is noteworthy that many of these Guatemalans came with their wives and children, and they tried to apply for the protective status. Many of them actually obtained legal status. While not all, a few percentage of them were actually able to obtain their documents. They abstained from driving without a license and try to be good law-abiding citizens. For the most part, the Guatemalan community are the hardest working people, the least paying jobs in the sun, roofing, tile, bricklaying, and all of the other jobs that are the most difficult. These are the Guatemalans. The hardest working jobs with the most difficult conditions almost always fall in the hands of Guatemalans. Those who are able to learn a little bit of English or obtain a work permit, quickly working in kitchens, abandoning construction sites, more comfortable, although not paying much better. These individuals who have a little bit better acclimation are able to work for the restaurants as dishwashers, bussers. Overall, Collier County has been one of the most oppressive places on immigrants anywhere in the state of Florida. But it is noteworthy that the Hispanic neighborhood that we're in right now, adjacent to downtown Naples, those are going to be the dishwashers and the bussers for the ultra wealthy. As you can see here, this community is bustling on a Sunday morning. People are out and about getting groceries, and bicycles line up the streets. It's almost hypocritical how in Collier County, where the poor people are, these areas have been raided consistently. But these immigrant communities attached to downtown Naples, those that serve the ultra wealthy, there haven't been police raids here. They've done nothing to bother these immigrant communities here in downtown Naples, because these are the immigrants that are working for the ultra rich. These are the busters and these are the landscapers for the ultra wealthy. So while Naples as a whole has done a lot to go after immigrants, they've even got to the point where 80% of their inmates are now of Hispanic background. It used to be less than 20%. So police profiling has been heavy here. Interestingly, they're not targeting the area that the ultra wealthy benefit the most. And these Latino communities that are attached to the ultra wealthy people, life goes on as normal here. They're not going to bother these Guatemalans. These illegal people who work for the ultra wealthy, they're not going to get deported. They're going for the ones that are building houses, the ones that are fixing roofs. But these illegal people that live here, close to downtown Naples, they work for the same lawmakers who make the laws that the rest of us have to live by. But in their communities, they're not going after their illegals. They're going after yours. Miami, Florida, the state's largest metropolitan area. No other city in the United States had a larger percentage of its population be people under temporary status. It's not Los Angeles, it's not Chicago, it was Miami, Florida. Of course, nobody talks about this because it doesn't match their narratives. The first waves of Cubans and Venezuelans were wealthy business owners who quickly acclimated to American culture. The more recent waves of immigrants are literally begging on the streets, refusing to acclimate. Well, that's what Cubans and Venezuelans from Miami who are legal would want you to believe, because they forgot that when they came to the United States, they were no different than these people. The only thing different is that when they came, there were laws that allowed them to have their legal status, and now those provisions don't exist. But in the case of Cubans, for example, speaking as a Cuban myself, there was a time when Cubans could come to the United States and just by touching foot here were able to become citizens with nothing else, just arriving. And we forget that these were policies that both Republicans and Democrats allowed to take place for long periods of time. In fact, it was Barack Obama on his last day in office who got rid of the wet foot, dry foot law for Cubans, because Cubans were starting to heavily vote Republican when they became citizens. A man who built his platform on racial equality and inclusion of everyone decides to get rid of a protective status for refugees, but he does it on his last day in office, on his way out quietly. He didn't do it while he was still in office. And this is exactly what's happened to the immigrant communities in Florida. They've kissed up to the Republicans, and the Republicans have abandoned them. They've kissed up to the Democrats, and they've done the same. In the past, the migrant communities in Florida were a strong political power that had to be reckoned with both political parties in this country. But as of recently, neither party really gives a crap about immigrants, and whether they vote or not, they're completely unheard. From being able to determine the outcome of U.S. presidential elections to being completely undocumented, this is how laws have changed in the contrary of immigrants in Miami, Florida. Once yielding incredible political power, today they have become insignificant politically, and those who still hold fast to their political views must be completely blindfolded to the reality that they no longer matter. They want your vote, but they by no means want your presence in this country. I mean, to be honest, it's getting to the point where they don't seem like they even care about your vote either. The point being that these communities, a lot of people are disenchanted. They believe that these political parties were there for them and their rights, but it turns out that they were only being used as toilet paper, only to be flushed away when they were no longer useful. I've always told Cubans in Miami and Venezuelans who think that they're Republicans that if they're really Republicans, they should move to West Virginia, Alabama, and Arkansas and see how well their presence goes in those places. I mean, if you're really an American and if you're really a Republican, why don't you move to rural Alabama and see how that works out for you? Because you're still in Miami. You haven't left Miami, but you're a hardcore Republican. Move to Alabama and see how that goes for you. Move to West Virginia and see how that goes for you. Without a doubt, many Latinos have woken up to the reality of how they're really viewed by everyone else. At one point, they thought that they were part of this country's fiber, that they were part of the political power, but it's becoming very clear and evident today that those perhaps were just illusions that didn't last. And perhaps it's this disenchantment in the American dream that hurts these communities the most emotionally versus the actual physical assistance in an undocumented state. It's not the notion that you're not documented, it's the notion that you're not wanted, because these individuals, again, really thought that they were the American dream, and turns out that they're what's most unwanted by the United States right now. And thus, the illusion of the American dream has disappeared. The streets of Miami are empty. They feel sad. They feel lifeless. It's more the disenchantment and the disillusion, the sadness on people's faces, the realization, the feeling of rejection and betrayal. Miami doesn't feel the same. This was a city that was vibrant, full of life, music on the streets. Miami, after all, was built by immigrants, and they were the life and fiber of the city, a life that is now gone. After COVID, price increases forced a lot of the communities here to move into more affordable parts of the state. Many of these individuals are now discovering that places like Ocala, while affordable as far as housing goes, offer literally no opportunities. And the few opportunities that exist in these areas are not for people who speak English with an accent, are not for Cubans for Miami. These are white American jobs. See, these Cubans, they really thought that they were white Americans. And when they moved to Tennessee and North Carolina and Ocala, they find out that they can't get a job because their skin's just a little too brown. It's a disenchantment of these people who sold what they had in Miami to move to more affordable places. And now those people are very unhappy with where they ended up. I know this is speaking from personal experience as somebody who sold their property in Naples and moved to Alabama looking for affordability because of the price increases during COVID. And here I am back in Florida now paying rent when I used to be a homeowner in this area. I mean, one can say that at least the people getting deported are getting sent back to their country with their people. It's the Cubans that are legally here, the ones that are literally homeless in their own country, you could say, unwanted in their own land where they live. At least the people getting deported have a place that they can call my country. Miami quickly became one of the most expensive cities in the United States, and despite the depletion of any economical resources, people kept moving here and increasing the prices, making life almost impossible for the locals. And today, Miami really is devoid of anything. It's a city that has become kind of like a sleepy southern town again, with businesses boarded up, streets empty, and of course, leasing and for rent signs everywhere. The situation in Miami has really become a parable of a city that was once vibrant, thriving, and growing, and has today become something like a ghost town. Of course, in the comment section below, you're going to see people that live in Miami saying that things are great here. We're just going to have to ignore those people. Like I said, those are the people that still refuse to see the reality of what's happened to their city. For me, a person who's always visited Miami, it's an exhilarating city full of life, culture, food, and so much life and activity, all of which is gone today. Miami looks like a complete ghost town. The districts are empty, the life is gone, and this is really a city that soon will be something like a Detroit if it keeps going the way it's going. Miami used to be called the capital of Latin America. This is where Latin American business moved. Everything that happened on the entire North American continent and in South America, all of it was managed here from Miami, whether it was logistics for transport, international trade, all of this was based out of Miami. It's a lot of people, these are wealthy businessmen who are able to be citizens in the United States. It becomes an issue of pride. Am I going to live in a country that's disrespecting me and treating me like I'm an illegal? Wealthy business people who travel to many countries cannot risk a deportation. And what's happening in Florida is that they've made laws that allow law enforcement to deport somebody who's a tourist, to deport somebody who's not exactly illegally in the country. And on top of that, combined with police profiling, making these individuals targets, a lot of wealthy business people from other countries like Latin America have decided it's not that they can't legally be in the United States, it's that because of the racial profiling and laws that the state of Florida has put in place, it's made it inconvenient for them to come to the United States where they could risk having a problem, and they can't have that on their record because these are people that travel to many different countries. This has led to a lot of businesses that were based out of Miami going to the Dominican Republic, Colombia, and Mexico, countries where they don't have to face these repercussions. The businesses, the money, the capital behind all these investments in Miami wasn't American, it was Latin American, and now that investment is gone. The media portrayed the narrative that it was New Yorkers and Californians fleeing Republican or Democrats in some other state. It was a reason why they came here. Well, that's not the reality. The reality was that most of the capital and most of the buyers were actually Latin American people with cash money who were trying to bail out of failing countries to bring their investments here. So a lot of Latin American money was thrown at Miami, and that caused price appreciation here. So now the capital's gone on the real estate side, the capital's gone on the business side. So moving forward, things in Miami are not going to get better. And of course, the irony of Miami is that there isn't an oppressive white man here. These are immigrants that came yesterday, mad at immigrants that came today. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it just goes to show how hateful and divisive politics are in the United States, turning communities against each other, people eating up the own fiber of their own communities for a larger cause of a party that doesn't care about you because you're part of that community as well. Divisive, hateful, misleading. These are the politics that have destroyed Miami, and well, a city full of life has become a city that today feels dreadful. As prices increase after COVID, the whites bought up the wealthy areas, and this pushed the Hispanics into the black communities. Areas like Liberty City and Northwest Miami that were overwhelmingly black today are starting to be almost half and half. These historically African American neighborhoods are slowly becoming Hispanic, but now they're becoming vacant because the blacks were displaced because of affordability. The Hispanics displaced the blacks as the whites displaced the Hispanics, and now the Hispanics disappear, leaving behind a void in Miami. What a complete nightmare. Over the path of 5 or 6 years, a course of destruction laid itself upon Miami. And while crime and delinquency in the heart of the African American communities in Miami isn't as bad as it was in the mid-2000s, let's say, it's starting to look like things will eventually get there. See, these pockets of available real estate could mean that people could start to filter back into Miami looking for the affordability that's created by that void. If it gets created, at the end of the day, that means that more low-income people are going to come back to a Miami that has less jobs and less opportunities than it's ever had. Because after all, you remember where the money in Miami was coming from, a source that no longer exists. Definitely things in Miami are not looking good, and things don't look like they're going to get any better. That's my personal take on what's going on in Miami. If you have another version, I'd love to hear it. What about La Pequeña Havana, Little Havana, the historic heart of Miami's Cuban community? Well, over the last decade, Little Havana has become less and less Cuban and more Central Americans. Hondurans, Salvadorians, and other Latin Americans like Nicaraguans have slowly taken over Little Havana. A lot of these individuals do not have legal status. So when they empty out, we can say that Little Havana is going to suffer a little bit. The reason I say a little bit is because it has become kind of a hub of culture in Miami, and these areas do get supported now by tourists more than ever for its somewhat authentic flair that many people don't find in other places. The wealthy and rich of Miami have taken a liking to Little Havana, and even though it was a rainy Sunday morning, you can see restaurants and streets here are packed. So when it comes to Miami, it's particular districts where the wealthy, overall, for the wealthy and the rich, life continues as normal. It's really the middle class and the poor people who are suffering right now. As far as the rich people go, the ones that can sit down and pay $90 for a cheeseburger, life continues normal for them. And you can see here on this rainy Sunday morning that Little Havana is busy. But you have to remember that this is kind of just a tourist representation of what these neighborhoods used to be. By no means does this neighborhood even have a composition of Cubans anymore. And now with many of the people being deported, it's hard to tell what will happen to the authenticity of this neighborhood. The good thing is that at least business here may not be as strong as it used to be in the past, but at least there's some type of interest in these neighborhoods, and hopefully they can survive. This is really a war on the poor and the middle class. The rich survive, and as a testament to that, as you're driving around the city, you'll notice those robo things, these little robots that do food delivery. So again, it's the poor and the middle class who have to wonder about their future. As far as the rich people who live, in wealthy areas of Miami and go to these little restaurants and pay $90 for a bagel, life continues normal for them, and their districts are busy and packed. It's everybody else who's suffering. The rich, they don't really care. They're unaffected. They might actually find opportunities with other people losing what they have. Bonita Springs, Bonita, as it's known by the locals, nestled between Naples and Fort Myers. This was kind of a sleepy little town that became extraordinarily expensive. As Fort Myers grew and Naples grew, Bonita Springs got crowded in the middle. And gentrification is what I would describe what took place here. At first it looked like renovation or revitalization, but it's little by little turned into gentrification. There's a small Guatemalan and Mexican community here that's quickly being displaced. Most of these people are going to work in landscaping and other jobs that the people that are moving in are definitely not going to do. So it raises an eyebrow into who's going to mow the lawns of the rich people. What's bizarre about Bonita Springs being gentrified and overrun with millennials is that Bonita Springs literally was this old people's town. It was just a migrant community and a bunch of old Canadian snowbirds. There was nothing exciting about Bonita Springs, but today it looks something like a hipster's paradise. A baby Austin, Texas, trapped between Naples and Fort Myers. To me, it's been bizarre to see this transformation of Bonita Springs from a beautiful little quiet town to something of a hip place to be. With lots of activities throughout the whole year, Bonita Springs really is beautiful. Now, flooding here has become a huge problem. East of Bonita Springs is the Crew Swamp. The Florida South Water Management District created what they called firewalls, which were nothing more than highways for water that were supposed to prevent the spread of wildfires. These became highways for water, which means that whenever we had a hurricane or large flooding event, literally flooded the city of Bonita Springs. Some neighborhoods in Bonita Springs have flooded for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. Yeah, the water doesn't just drain in a few days, it sticks around for weeks, and in some neighborhoods, even months. The people rebuild everything they lost, and a few weeks after rebuilding, it floods again. Not only is Bonita Springs extraordinarily expensive, but many of the more affordable parts of Bonita Springs are areas where your home floods constantly, continually, with no end. It's bizarre how much risk there is involved with this town, and without a doubt, development plays a role into why the city has started to flood more. But it isn't just the development, it's been the mismanagement at the hands of the South Florida Water Management District and FWC, the agency in charge of the Everglades, and the disastrous situations that they've created and the explanations that they've never given to why Bonita Springs is now a freaking river. Today, the undocumented community of Bonita Springs continues to roam about as if they were poodles being walked by a rich white woman, completely unfazed by their surroundings or the political and economical situation that is plaguing the state of Florida. For these people here, life continues as normal. They understand what's happening. They go to work when they can. They hide when they can. And you can tell that things here just don't matter to them that much. A lot of these people don't drive cars. They drive bicycles. These neighborhoods here used to be really trashy and dirty, but they've cleaned up quite a bit because they know that the outside presence of their home is an indicator to undocumented people. So they try to hide and they try to play it off as best they can. A lot of people here in Bonita Springs have no intentions of leaving in the United States. These communities have been here for decades now, and while the older people may not be U.S. citizens, may be undocumented, their kids were born here, went through the school systems here. Doctors, lawyers, real estate agents, paramedics, firefighters. These are the children of the undocumented people. Literally the workforce of Southwest Florida, from law enforcement to lawyers to real estate. These are the children of the undocumented people, and they've been here for a while. Real estate was cheap back then. These people all bought properties. They have really good acquisitions in real estate. They have really good families that they raised. After all, Bonita Springs, and it's like one of the safest places to live. So most of these people that were undocumented were able to put their kids through good schools. They were able to acquire real estate. So while a lot of the people that own all of these properties here in Bonita Springs, they might be undocumented, and all their kids are lawyers and doctors and such, and realtors, and they're wealthy people. And they went to school with rich kids. A lot of them have intermarried into money. So, they're leaving behind a generation that's well-to-do. But most of the people that came here many years ago were able to acquire that. The ones that have come more recently, their situation doesn't look the same. For the most part, a lot of Hondurans and Guatemalans came here with the understanding that they were illegal to make as much money as they could, as quickly as they could, to try to start up a ranch back home. So these were people, many of them have no intention of being legal in the United States. That's not what they came here for. The mindset of Latin Americans that came back then varies from the ones that come now. And as of recently, there's a whole different mindset going around with undocumented people, and we're going to touch on that with the Orlando video. Orlando, Florida, the Orlando metropolitan area, expansive. We start here off in the area of Polk County. There's also like 4 other counties: Lake County, Osceola, Orange, Seminole. Orlando is a huge hub of cities in the central part of the state, inland areas. Predominantly here, the largest group is Puerto Ricans. As you guys know, Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, not deportable. So you would think that Orlando would be less affected by the changes that are happening right now. Not exactly. Compatible with Puerto Ricans, people like Brazilians and other people from the Caribbean islands moved here, and a lot of them were definitely not legal. So the issue in Orlando became what I call the burnouts. Now, happening throughout the entirety of the state of Florida. These people that came under protective statuses are individuals who came here with no intentions of integrating. Not possible from a legal perspective and not desired from a cultural perspective. These are people who came to the United States fleeing countries like Venezuela, where they had no option but to get the crap out because of the regime there. A lot of the things that are happening in Venezuela are also happening in Nicaragua, with Nicaraguans being a little bit less educated, a little bit more primitive. The issue being that recently, these individuals who are undocumented in the Orlando area are kind of on a crash test dummy mission. See, these individuals are buying cars, they're getting credit cards, they're getting their hands on anything they can get a hold of by any means necessary. And a lot of them are just delinquenting until they get caught. These individuals, once they do get caught, get to go home. They're literally like buying containers and filling them up with everything they can get their hands on, like I said, by any means necessary. So these are people who are burning out. They're crashing out, and they're looting as much as they can before their time runs up. And this is happening in the entirety of the state of Florida right now. So what people don't realize is a lot of these Venezuelans and Cubans and all these Dominicans and people who are here and now they don't have papers, there's a lot of hate and resentment from their part because they thought they were coming here and they were lied. You know, one administration gives you a work permit and a driver's license and the other administration starts a witch hunt for you. So they're not very happy about the predicament they were placed in by the U.S. government, selling you a dream and then turning that dream into a nightmare. These individuals, a lot of them are very resentful. And please believe that these individuals who have traversed 10, 12 countries to get here are finna crash out right now, loot as much as they can, steal as much as they can. You have to understand that these aren't like Americans who, go homeless and start panhandling out in the middle of the road asking for $1. These are people that traverse 10, 12 countries to get here. They risk their lives to get here. They've already risked everything to get here. So these are individuals that have already been through a lot of challenges, a lot of hardship in their life. So if they're going to go back to their country, they're not going to go back deported, broken, defeated. These individuals are going to hit a lick, man. And what's happening in Florida is that we've seen among the Cuban community, the ones that are going to get deported here soon, you've seen among those people an increase in organized crime rings, like crime syndicates that target fuel stations to steal the fuel. It's resold in a black market to people that work in commercial dump trucks and stuff like that. Insurance fraud is through the roof. Haitians and Dominicans are going hard at that right now. Cubans are also going hard at credit card fraud. Bank fraud's becoming another one, trying to cash fake checks. People are getting credit cards with fake identifications or with their own identifications, and they're literally looting the life out of the American economical system of loan and debt. People are buying cars and putting them on containers. Okay, so you bought a car here in the United States, you put it on a container. Are you going to go get your car back in Venezuela or Nicaragua? Probably not. So what people are doing now is that they're putting cars in containers. They'll buy a car or lease a car, rent a car, put it in a container and ship it to another country. By the time people realize what's going on, the car is already in another country. So it's kind of like a mass looting of the United States before they leave. And, this is kind of the mindset that many people have right now is let's just burn out, crash out, get as much as we can out of the situation because after all, there's nothing for us here. And sprinkle on top of that a little bit of hate and resentment for what's going on with them. A complete disaster. This is the reality, the secret looting that's going on in Florida. As I've always told you guys on my YouTube channel, you don't have to like what I say, but you can't deny that what I'm saying is true. And that's what's going on right now in the state of Florida. Businesses are suffering, economical, financial institutions are being defrauded, and of course, after all, this is all bringing a massive economical decline. In the case of the Orlando area, tourism has been hurting. Nobody's going to come over here to be disrespected, so international tourists are boycotting Florida. Who's going to go on a vacation to be treated like an invader? I remember a while back, I was here in Bradenton, Florida, along our beaches, and I was talking to somebody from Spain who was here on vacation to show their family a few iconic beaches. And he was telling me that he ran into an American person who was screaming at him that you're an invader, that you need to learn English, that you're in America, you need to speak English, and you need to leave my country. This guy was on vacation from Spain with his family. And this is what some stupid, random, drunk person did to them on the beach. So who is going to come to this country like that? The state of Florida is based off of tourism. Usually about 70 million tourists come to these theme parks. A lot of those tourists are international, and without their presence, cities like Orlando that are based on international tourism and Tampa area as well, yeah, they're going to suffer. The streets of Florida are not quite as empty as they were during COVID, but it's definitely reminiscent of that era. A complete economical decline. Hopefully it doesn't last or continue, because at the rate things are going, a lot of people in Florida are going to lose everything they have. Eventually, people are not going to be able to sustain their businesses. We'll finish off today's video in the Tampa Bay area. Now, this area was hit about a year ago by two hurricanes, Milton and Helene, and much of the coastline hasn't recovered. The amount of real estate available along the coastline of Tampa right now is insane. If you go a little bit further inland, you can't really tell, but along the coastline, things are bad. Tourism here is dependent on snowbirds and people from up north. International tourists play a huge and considerable role in the economy here, and that aspect of it will most likely disappear. What's left is to see if people are going to come back to a hurricane aftermath destruction zone that is right now, sadly, the coast of Tampa Bay. Are people going to snowbird in a hurricane aftermath? And if they are, how much money are they going to spend? It seems that people are kind of not spending a lot of money right now, and they're holding their wallets tight. If we continue to have warmer winters up north like we've had over the last few years, that can also spell disaster for this area. Many iconic restaurants have not reopened. Many hotels that are iconic to people have not reopened. So it seems like tourism here has been bad. People that work in hospitality and that work in transportation, like Uber drivers, people at hotels, anybody basically that's tied into the flow of tourism, which is the largest industry here, those people are suffering greatly. They just had the worst off-season ever in the Tampa Bay area, and the season has already technically started, and it hasn't started off very well. Empty roads all over Florida. Normal during the summer, but it's already 10:28. By now, things should be getting a little bit busier. And they're starting to come back little by little, but it's going to take a very strong tourist season for the businesses that are still opening, dealing with immigration, international policy, and hurricane aftermath, for all these changes to take place all at once, as well as issues with insurance in Florida. These businesses don't have a very good outlook. So things are definitely not looking good in the Tampa Bay area, and tourism in Florida as a whole has taken a slump. Very soon will be the tourist season. It will take a very strong tourist season to revive the few businesses that are still around in these vital areas that depend on tourism.